So obviously one of the things that comes with collecting any action figure line long term is you're going to wind up with a whole bunch of weird pack-in things, right, from over the years. And some of them are useful, some of them wind up in the junk drawer, and some of them you don't even realize why you own them. Well, the latest of these, of course, was the Flashback slide, something included with waves released right before episode 1. Well, not right before it came out, but while it was in pre-production. This was a wave that was meant to connect the current trilogy with now what was going to be the prequel and only other trilogy, until, of course, we got more Star Wars, but that's a Disney acquisition for another time. Either way, this wave featured characters that somehow were represented in Episode 1. With Chewbacca, it was a bit of a stretch, saying, well, there's Chewbacca in the original trilogy, and then there's a Wookiee senator, because even though Jar Jar was kind of the sidekick alien, they didn't want to give Jar Jar away. What can I say? Well, they may not have even known what he looked like at this point, because, like I said, Episode 1 was in development. It was just concept art, and Jar Jar actually looked very different. God, he probably would have been worse if he looked like that. All right, anyway, this is not meant to be an anti-Jar Jar video. Let's get off that subject entirely and move on. So while Episode 1 and gearing up for it was the theme behind a lot of marketing and a lot of product development, it wasn't ready yet. But the next best thing to having a sneak preview Mace Windu, who we'll be getting to in a future video, was the Flashback wave. And while most of the figures were released at once, Emperor Palpatine lagged behind, I guess you could say, by a few weeks, enough that a cinema scene hit before he showed up in an updated mix. Now, unlike Chewbacca, he actually flashes back to himself, meaning the younger version of himself, Senator Palpatine, which I guess kind of gives it all away right here, right? Like, this package back gives away the entire point of the mystery of the first movie, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to get into that either. There's a whole lot you could talk about with Episode 1. Either way, this is the point where Episode 1 hadn't happened yet. So these flashback photos, you pulled them on that little tab, and it would change the picture from the character from the Classic Trilogy to that version from said Episode 1, which we didn't even have a title of at this point. It was just known as Episode 1. In fact, that's actually why it had to go on package that way. Hasbro didn't even know the title in time to put it on package, but again, that's a YouTube video for another time. So, flashback photo insert, awesome, plussed up chotch, and a vehicle to push Episode 1, especially in the foreign markets when this wave shipped later, and you can see the Episode 1 branding, which is now used directly on package, because these figures reintroduced all of the major characters, and therefore their counterparts in the original or in the upcoming prequel trilogy. So Palpatine being a central figure and literally the Phantom Menace, I believe he is the namesake of Episode 1, right? As opposed to Anakin? I don't think so. Obviously figures of him before. And it's because, well, he winds up being the main villain of the trilogy. I guess you see Vader is redeemed and no longer a bad guy, since Palpatine is just evil through and through, even when he's a clone and brought back into future. Wait a minute. Disney just picked up this storyline from Dark Horse? I'm just putting it all together. Just kidding, I knew about that. Alright, so Palpatine has been done, he had been done. Power of the Force 2 had their fair share, and they had both standing Palpatine and lightning shooting Palpatine. In fact, there had been two versions of lightning shooting Palpatine at this point, the Electronic FX one and the minted Millennium Coin version, which was just a slightly retooled version of said previous one. So now we introduce a third lightning shooting Emperor Palpatine, but in this case it was the first single carded figure. The previous ones had been deluxe figures, or, well, yeah, I guess you could count the Millennium Minted Coin as deluxe. I mean, it did have a stand and a base, and they charged more. And obviously this wasn't going to be the last Emperor shooting Palpatine. The Emperor Palpatine shooting lightning. See, word order is very important when you make YouTube videos. You have to get the words in the right order. Otherwise, it just sounds like you're talking Wookiee talk. So Palpatine made sense to include, of course, because this wave was all about their counterparts, and while Darth Vader didn't exactly have a counterpart outside of, well, I guess Anakin Skywalker, ooh, I just gave that away too, they all shipped over the course of a summer with the first wave, then Palpatine, and then a full second wave. Palpatine was supposed to be part of the first wave, but he just got delayed and wound up in a refresh assortment. So when you got Obi-Wan and Luke and R2, that whole wave, we should have gotten Palpatine at the same time. But, that happens all the time with toys, where one unit lags behind and either gets pushed to the next mix, or what's called a refresh mix, when you go into production a second time. All right, so As far as how to refresh Palpatine, well, while he is the main villain of Episode 6 and maybe the entire saga, he doesn't do much other than walk and sit on a throne and stick out his tongue and, well, torture Luke by shooting lightning at him. So I guess this is his most actiony. And, well, I guess if you really wanted to stretch, you could do the hologram versions, and you've even got the Empire version with the chimpanzee eyes. Yes, look it up, it's a fact, Google it. Or the version from the special editions where they put in Ian McDiarmid and made it look all, stitched together and nice and changed the dialogue and broke all our hearts. All right, so you got your choices. And walking Palpatine had already been done as a single carded figure. This was the first new one we got in the modern era. And we had sitting Palpatine released in that awesome cinema scene where the Jedi duel with Vader and Luke, and where they tried to trademark the word duel. Yeah, go check that video out. It's a hoot. And then, of course, we had, again, our lightning shooting ones, which were covered already by the FX and Millennium Minted Coin, since we didn't get a single carded version of Palpatine doing this. And Palpatine shooting lightning is absolutely the most toyetic version of him, because otherwise he's just old man walking, and, that's really exciting. But old man shooting lightning out of his fingertips? Heck yeah. Now, with the prequels looming, one of the nice things for a character like Palpatine that just does not have that much variety is it did add a little bit of spice. I mean, you had the elongated robes of Darth Sidious, who is absolutely not Palpatine, and then the hologram version of said Darth Sidious, which was actually a really hard-to-find figure, and one of the few Episode 1 figures I still have. Then there was this updated hologram version, which corrected the size and put him on the little walking stand, which is kind of a hoot, but hey, release that as a basic figure. And then, of course, you've got red robes and all sorts of different things happening in Episode 3. All right, should I stop with the spoiler alerts? How we learn that Emperor Palpatine and President or Chancellor Palpatine, President Palpatine, Chancellor Palpatine are the same person. Now, we would get Emperor Palpatine figures beyond the ones that, came out. And oddly, or not so oddly, it would really always be the Classic Trilogy version. Even with all those alternate looks from the prequels, really every Palpatine we've gotten in the last few years has been Classic Trilogy version. So, what can I say? There's something about that Classic Trilogy. It wins out. And when it comes to doing a villain like Palpatine, why would they continue to release him? I mean, come on. It's Palpatine. It's awesome. Rocks.